Hey, what is up guys? So, Cardians, it's an archetype that came out, it's got tons of draw power, and I think some people just never got a chance to play this deck or see what the heck it does because, again, no one's talking about it, no one's really playing it, but Mutually over here is definitely showcasing off it at its strong point. They still have some insane cards to their arsenal, and there's another card I really want to talk about that can be really good in the future, and this card is already out. It's a trap card that can just completely destroy certain decks because you're able to just bounce back things. But anyways, Flower Gathering is an insane card. You just special summon 4 Cloudian monsters with 100 attack and different names from your deck in attack position. They have their effects negated, but they can't be tributed, and then on top of that, you can only activate 1 per turn, and you can't normal special summon anything except for Cardians. But this card is still very good. I mean, one card is special summon 4 monsters. There's really nothing else in the game that lets you just special summon 4 monsters from your deck. Really insane effect. And only 300 life points. We're going to be seeing an amazing comeback and a few other replays, and I'll give you guys the dev profile. So if any of you guys want to try out Cardians, maybe try this underrated, I would say rogue-ish deck. Try it out because they can do a lot of really cool things, as you guys will see. And I just wanted to share it with you guys because I always root for underdog decks that are not very meta. I mean, we don't know. This Dark Magician guy might just summon Dark Magician attack directly. We don't know yet. But anyways, you've got a lot of abilities to manipulate your deck to stack certain cards on top of your deck. And if it's a Flower Cardian card, sometimes you can actually just special summon it. You can do a lot of different things by manipulating your deck, and I think that it's kind of a cool mechanic. I remember the Sylvans were a deck that were able to stack their deck in a certain order and then get certain cards, and I think that that is a pretty cool mechanic in itself. The Dark Magician player not looking too good, setting Magician's robe here, and the Cardian player is going to be able to go to town with really nothing left on the board from Dark Magician player. But this card is just insane, and on top of that, there's a lot of really good cards in the archetype, which will definitely take some showcasing in these plays over here. And you're able to burn your opponent for just 1,500 points of damage. So if you're in that situation where you don't want to attack, you have the option just to go for the Light Shower and just burn your opponent for 1,500 points of damage during their normal draw. So it's really good. But anyways, like I said, I have a few replays that I want to share with you guys. They're just really cool. This one is up against another like roguelike deck, Cyber Angels. I remember a lot of people were getting really excited about this deck, and then it just flopped real hard because some of the meta just kind of overpowers a lot of things. Now, I'm not saying Cardians can overpower the meta and they're going to be meta, but I think showcasing off other decks is cool because I know a lot of you guys are not fans of like the Zodiac decks that just kind of abuse some of the mechanics of the rank 4 engine, especially with like the whole Invoker engine. But anyways, this guy's going to be making a pretty big board. He's got the Herald of Perfection out on board. He's got a few cards at his disposal, 4,800 attack though, and he's got the Herald of Perfection with 1 card left in his hand. He's going to attack into that and just pretty much clear the board. He's only got 1,500 life points, and it really just comes down to this card, being able to special summon all those monsters. Whenever you're playing Herald of Perfection, you got a back row that's nothing, keep it in your hand, because I think that your opponent will obviously realize, well, if there's no light fairies, you're good to go. But nonetheless, it doesn't really matter at this point because he would obviously have gone for the play regardless. He's going to go ahead and make the Flower Cardian Light Flare, and this card is actually really insane. You guys will see up against more of a meta deck that plays like the whole Adeolon Beast, and on top of that, there is the Zodiacs, but we'll get into that replay last because I'm saving the best for last for you boys. But anyways, yeah, this card is insane. It's got 5,000 attack once per turn. During either player's turn, you get to negate a spell and trap, and on top of that, if this card goes away, you get to bring out another Cardian monster that protects all your other Cardian monsters, which is actually really good. This is the Light Shower. So with the Light Flare, you bring out Light Shower when it goes away, and then this card protects all of your Cardian cards by making so your opponent cannot target them, and then on top of that, you can burn your opponent. There's a lot of really dirty cards that this archetype has, but like I said, save the last for best, and then I'll also give you guys the deck profile and kind of explain things a little bit more in depth, because Cardians, they're a very fast archetype. And on top of that, Allure of Darkness is at 3, so they have a lot of extra consistency, which we'll go over when we go ahead and go over Michu's deck profile. But anyways, the guy goes ahead and makes a first turn Crystal Wing and has a Bottomless Trap Hole. I haven't seen this card in quite some time, but nonetheless, the Cardian player is going to go ahead and try to activate the effect of Pine, and then he's going to go ahead and get that negated, but he's got the Flower Gathering. Just special summon 4 monsters from your deck. Pretty good effect. Bottomless Trap Hole is activated. Going to get rid of the Cardian Paulownia with Phoenix. And then he's going to go ahead and go for the Flower stacking your deck in this one. And he's going to go ahead and make the very powerful Flower Cardian 5 Lights. And on top of that, it has this effect where if a Flower Cardian monster you control battles an opponent's monster, that monster has its effect negated. So that's pretty good. This guy's going to go ahead and go for the play where he's going to go ahead and go for Dagusto Emerald. And then, of course, Drancia. Really standard bread and butter play from the Zodiacs. And he's going to go ahead and actually try to get rid of the Light Flare, which will actually go off. But nonetheless, another card will come out. He's going to go ahead and get rid of the Light Flare. Light Flare will then activate its effect, and he's going to go ahead and be able to protect his own cards. This guy over here, I don't think he really knew what the heck was going on here because he tried to activate Drancia's effect. Now this card makes it so you cannot target the Cardian card, so he had to kill his own Drancia. Not that it really mattered. Drancia was pretty much useless after this card was on board, other than trying to protect him from taking additional damage, but whatever, you gotta do what you gotta do. But he still has a Dagusto Emerald, so he's able to recycle some of his Zodiac engine. And then he's got the Dimension Barrier to negate the effects, perhaps, of this card. But a number 77 Sins was made, so this card can actually detach 2 material, then banish monsters your opponent controls. As many special summon monsters as your opponent controls, which would be, I believe, just this one. But still pretty good effect. He activates the barrier to stop that effect. And the Cardian player is going to go ahead and make another card that is a synchro in the archetype, which is Board Fly. So a Flower Cardian monster you control attacks, it does piercing, and once per turn you can banish a Flower Cardian monster from your graveyard until the end of your opponent's next turn. Your opponent cannot activate effects of cards in the graveyard. Also, they cannot special summon monsters from the graveyard. So they do have a lot of other cards that, again, no one's just really talking about, so I wanted to showcase them off. But wow, those were some really cool plays over that. Hopefully you guys can see how the deck works a little bit better. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the deck profile, so shoutouts to Michu for this awesome build. Now, I also want to talk about other cards that would work well in the archetype. There is this card called Allure of Darkness. It's at 3. You know, all the Cardians are dark, so you can get a lot of additional draw power potentially if you wanted to. In addition to that, there's a really good card. It's called Fraud Freeze, or No Cheaters Allowed, which I love the name in the OCG. But anyways, once per turn when your opponent special summons a monster or monsters from the hand, except for during the damage step, you can return all monsters your opponent controls that were special summoned from the hand. But if neither player controls a Flower Cardian Synchro monster, send this card to the graveyard. Maybe this was a win harder card, but when you just make something like a turn 1, you play to make just any of the Synchros in the Cardian archetype, which, you know, with this card where you can special summon 4, it's not the most difficult thing to do. If you go against a Pendulum deck, they go for their big Pendulum Summon, you just bounce everything back, and then it's your turn, and then they go for Pendulum Summon, you just bounce everything back. That's where I feel like this deck has a lot of chance to succeed. Obviously, Link Summoning is going to be a thing in the future, and I don't think this deck really gets too hurt by Link Summons, because you're going to usually only have, well, I mean, the goal is to go for the 5 lights, and then once it dies, you just go for another Flower Cardian Synchro, and you can go for whatever you want, which is really good. But anyways, let's go ahead and go over the deck profile, and I'll try to explain things as best as I can. I'm not the most pro Cardian player. I don't really know the deck too well, but again, I just want to show it off because no one's talking about it. But anyways, we have one copy of the Paulownia with Phoenix. So this card has the effect, well, actually, most of them have the effect where you can't normal summon or set, must be special summon, usually by either controlling a Flower Cardian or tributing one. But anyways, to get this card out, you have to special summon it from your hand by tributing a level 12 Flower Cardian monster. And a lot of them say except for the copy of itself. But anyways, if this card was special summoned, you get to draw a card. And if you do show it, then you could special summon it if it's a Flower Cardian. And then otherwise you send it to the graveyard. And once per turn, When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you get to draw a card. So this whole archetype is all about drawing cards. Next up, we have 3 copies of the Paulina. So if you control level 11 or lower, you can just special summon it, and then you can't normal summon or special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except for flower Cardian monsters. A lot of the cards also have that, especially this card. Well, that would be really OP if it didn't have that effect. But anyways, has an effect where when this card is targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack and end the battle phase, and then draw a card. So it's kind of like the battle fader of the deck. Next up, we have 2 copies of the Cardian Willow with Calligrapher. So this card has that effect where it must be first special summon by tributing a level 11 flower Cardian monster except for itself, and then if this card was special summoned, you get to just draw a card, and then if it's a flower Cardian, you get to special summon it, and when this card is used as synchro material, you can treat it and all other synchro materials that have a level as level 2 monsters, so that really helps you go for your synchro plays. And then next up we have the Cardian Willow. So while you control a level 10 or lower, you get to special summon it, and then it has that effect where you can't special summon anything except for flower Cardian cards. But once per turn you target a flower Cardian monster in graveyard, shuffle it into the deck and draw a card. Then we have 3 copies of the Cardian Maple with Deer. So it must be special summoned from your hand by tributing 1 flower Cardian monster except for itself. And if it's special summoned, you get to draw a card. If it's a flower, you get to destroy 1 spell or trap card your opponent controls. So that's a little bonus effect there. And then we have 1 copy of the Zebra Grass with Moon. And its effect is, well, it has to be special summoned by tributing a level 8 flower Cardian monster except for itself. And then if it's special summoned, you get to draw a card. And if you do, you show it. And then you can special summon it if it's a flower card, and otherwise you send it to the graveyard. Once per turn, if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you get to draw a card. And then we have 3 copies of the Zebra Grass. And then this card is special summoned by having a level 7 or lower flower Cardian monster. And then if this card is normal summon or special summon, you can reveal any number of flower Cardian monsters in your hand, shuffle them into the deck, and then draw the same number. So this really helps out with draw power. You guys will notice a lot of the cards when you're drawing them, you get bonus effects if they're Cardians, so perhaps that's why there's no Allure of Darkness in the deck. But I thought that that wasn't like too bad of a card. You can see that it was in his original side deck, so it's probably something he was considering. Next up, we have the Cardian Clover with Boar. So it has to be special summoned by tributing 1 flower Cardian monster except for itself. And when this card is special summoned, you get to draw a card. If you do, show it. If it's a flower Cardian, you can destroy a monster opponent controls. Otherwise, you gotta send it to the graveyard. And then next up, we have 3 copies of the Cardian, is that Peony? With Butterfly. I don't know if that's a flower, but anyways, so it must be special summoned by tributing 1 flower Cardian monster except for itself. If this card is special summoned, you get to draw a card, and if you do, show it. If it's a flower Cardian, look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, and then you get to place them at the top or the bottom in any order. So that kind of lets you stack your opponent's deck, and then otherwise you send it to the graveyard. When this card is used as synchro material, you can treat it and all other synchro materials that have a level as level 2 monsters. Then we have 3 copies of Blossom with Curtain. So it must be special summoned by its own effect. You can reveal this card in your hand and draw 1 card. And if you do, show it and then special summon it if the drawn card is a flower Cardian. Otherwise, you send it to the graveyard. Then during either player's damage step, when a flower Cardian monster battles an opponent's monster, you can discard this card and it gains 1,000. So it's kind of like an honest in the deck, and it can work well with some of the cards. So one of them, it lets you draw a card if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle. That would be Paulina over here. Next up, we have the Pine with Crane. So it's got to be special summoned from your hand by tributing 1 level 1 flower Cardian monster except for itself. And then if it's special summoned, you get to draw a card and then show it, and then you can special summon it if it's a flower Cardian. And then at the end of the battle phase of this card battled, you get to draw a card. So that's pretty good over there. And then we have the Flower Cardian Pine, the last monster. We got 3 copies of it. So if it's normal summon, you get to just draw a card, show it, then send it to the graveyard unless it's a Flower Cardian monster. You can only use effect of it once per turn. And if it's destroyed by battle, and sent to the graveyard, or if it's in its owner's possession, destroyed by the opponent's card effect, it's on the graveyard, you can draw a card. So that means even if they Solemn Warning and negate it, you get to actually draw a card. That's pretty cool. Next up, we have 2 copies of Flower Stacking. So you choose 3 Flower Cardian monsters with different names, and then you get to stack your deck with this. And then during your main phase, except for the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it, target 1 Flower Cardian monster graveyard, add it to your hand. So you can only use the effect once per turn. Next up, we have 3 copies of Super Koi Koi. So you excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and special summon as many Flower Cardian monsters among them as possible, ignoring their summoning conditions, but the levels become 2 and they have their effects negated. Banish the remaining cards face down. If you do, you lose 1,000 life point for each. You can banish this card from your graveyard and tribute 1 monster to special summon 1 Flower Cardian monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning condition. So this really lets you go for a lot of crazier plays. It does negate their effects, but you can obviously go for the synchros with that. But anyways, next up we have Card Regeneration. So it's a spell card that says target a Flower Cardian monster in your graveyard, you get to add it back to your hand, and then you get to special summon a Flower Cardian monster from your hand, ignoring its conditions. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a Flower Cardian monster's effect, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, you can add 1 excavated spell or trap card from your hand, place the remaining cards on the top of your deck in any order. And we have 3 copies of it. And then lastly, the most insane card, the thing that I think makes the deck viable is the Flower Gathering, where you're able to just special summon 4 of them with 100 attack. Their effects are negated. They can't be tributed for a tribute summon, but you're going to usually synchro with them. Anyways, you only activate 1 per turn, and you can't normal summon any or special summon anything except for a Flower Cardian monster. But this card is really, really strong. Even if you have to leave the monsters on board, there's a chance that next turn maybe 1 of them or 2 of them will survive, so you'll be able to go for things. As far as the extra deck, we got 2 copies of Light Flare. We kind of went over the effect when we went over the replay. And then we have 3 copies of Light Shower. So this one actually has 2 effects. I went over the effect where you get to burn your opponent for 1,500, but during your opponent's end phase, you activate 1 of the effects. So you can skip the draw phase of your next turn, or this card has its other effects negated until your opponent's next standby phase. Usually people skip out their draw phase if you're going to be burning your opponent, because if it's surviving, you're going to be able to deal another 1,500, so that's like 3,000 total. So that's usually what people do, but nonetheless, a pretty good card. Next up, we got Crimson Blader, can still shut down certain decks. And then we have the Board Fly, which we went over during the replay. It just makes it so they can't really use stuff from the graveyard. And then we have 3 copies of Moonflower. We didn't really see Moonflower. I don't think we saw it during the replays. But anyways, once per turn, you can activate this effect to skip the draw phase of your next turn. Also, draw 1 card. If you do, show it, and then you can special summon it's a Flower Cardian. You ignore its summoning condition. When you do, it can attack directly this turn. But when this card is used as synchro material, you can treat it and all other synchro materials that have a level as level 2 monsters. So that really is easy to go for. We have 2 copies of Herald of Arc Light, and then we have 1 copy of Seven Sins, 1 Felgran, 1 Big Eye. I'm not really sure what the point of this card is. If any of you guys know, you guys can feel free to go ahead and chime in. I think it's just to try to negate something. I don't think there's too many times where you go for it, but you might as well fill up your extra deck, right? Anyways, these are side deck cards. I think he was just considering these. This was the card I thought was really good. It could destroy pendulum decks pretty easy. I guess he decided to just go with all Cardian cards. The reason why, guys, is a lot of stuff revolves around Cardian cards, and you want a high monster count, so when you reveal it's a Cardian card and you get the effect. Otherwise, you reveal like a Solemn, he's going to go to the graveyard anyway, so you won't get bonus off of that. But a really cool deck, and I think that it might be an underdog deck. Maybe it might get some more support. I mean, it recently got some support, but who knows? Maybe that they'll release some other support for it in the future. I mean, it has some of the best and craziest, conditions of just special and 4 monsters. So if they get some more support, this deck can definitely be good, and it's a relatively cheap deck, I would say. So if you want to build it, have some fun with it. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing Cardians in action. It's a really interesting deck. But thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the vid, make sure you guys give that diva a slap-a-reno, and also hit that subscribe button for more innovative Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks.